cops could get daunting new powers, Honorable Marlon Penn calls out Riteway and road accidents on the rise in the BVI.
Boris is the new UK Prime Minister. Jeffrey Epstein found injured, and Puerto Rican protest sparks resignation. These and more stories when 284 News returns.
What are you really running for, boss? You could have bust a hole in your head. But see, with the competition, it's mean about to bust a hole in your pocket.
I could get my modem, please.
Anyhow, I got something huge to show you.
I gotta be sick in your head.
Well, hold on, string bean. Tina kind of party. Check this. That's LTE1 for just about everyone. LTE2 for you and your boo. And hold on. Bam! Rate so low, you feel like you're free. That's LTE3 for you and the whole family.
Save even more on your internet with new pricing from CCT. Get LTE 2 now for only $149. Get LTE 3 for the new low price of $189. All packages are unlimited, so there's no overage charge. You don't have to run into Chaz for savings. Just stop by our store and sign up today. Come on over to CCT. Life Unlimited.
Hello?
Wait, you had a lunch and you say you were sick? What happened to our wedding rehearsal?
No, babe. I'm actually watching the news right now. Take a listen.
Topping our newscast today, UFOs seen around Tortola Pier Park.
And District 3 residents outraged over no water supply. They simply cannot bathe. These and more stories when 284 News returns.
All right, babe, just get some rest, take 2 Advil, and I'll see you later. Bye.
Okay, honey. I see you later. I love you.
It's clear to see that Coconut Lounge is a place to be, the coolest cocktail lounge in the British Virgin Islands. A lounge like no other, with welcoming, professional service, and a breathtaking ambiance. Not forgetting a diverse selection of wines, beers, and signature cocktails. Cozy, comfortable, contemporary. Coconut Lounge at Tortola Pier Park. Visit us today. Welcome everybody. It's Friday, July 26, 2019. I'm Ron Grant.
And I'm Javon Wilson.
It is Festival Friday in the Virgin Islands, and we are excited, but there's still a lot going on. So here are our headlines. Topping our newscast today, government lawmakers and the powers that be at the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force are having conversations that could very well lead to a new piece of legislation being passed. Commissioner of Police Michael Matthews this week said these policy adjustments will be vital in assisting police officers to effectively solve crimes. For example, at the moment, we can't forcibly take DNA from people. And as you know, DNA is very critical in crime detection tool, especially in the most serious of places. The revised act, it will provide for the taking of DNA by force if necessary. These were the remarks that he made. When implemented, the new policy will also see police being granted the ability to detain suspects for up to 92 hours in the most serious of cases. Now, Jovan, the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force already face a myriad of challenges, some of which include the first being, cops and community relations. The community simply does not trust law enforcement. And this is not something that's new to the territory. This happens regionally and internationally. You see a detachment between the law enforcement and the community. I realize that we have a lot of timid and seemingly poor trained officers. Many of the officers come across as powerless and not in control of the situation presented. Presently, you can only hold somebody for 24 hours. This is a big frustration for the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, Jovan, because they're saying this is not enough time. All right? Police Commissioner therefore believes that increasing the confinement limit will allow his officers to properly carry out investigations into more serious crimes. The new policy adjustment are now being discussed at the cabinet level, and the police chief, is hoping that it will eventually reach the House of Assembly for debate, and that members of the House will see fit to push through with the legislation, which he thinks will modernize the way we do business in the territory. Now, Jovan, this is a huge story, but I have a couple questions that I think needs to be answered. And you've always said this before, who's watching the guard or something like that?
Right.
Who's policing the police?
Right.
When you give police this amount of leverage where they could, one, forcibly take DNA and you're holding someone up until 92 hours. I just need to know who's policing the police. In addition to that, we're jumping from 24 hours to 92 hours hold. We have seen many times where persons who may be suspects can flee the territory, which has led to the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force now seeking to partner with law enforcement agencies, regionally and internationally, with trying to bring these persons back because they accuse suspects in unsolved murders. How will persons' DNA be handled? What if you are acquitted or no longer a suspect in a case? What happens to your DNA? Is DNA currently stored in a database, and will it be stored in a database with this proposed new law? Can innocent persons' DNA too be stored in the database? Let's look at the United Kingdom for a second. Based on some research that I did, Jovan, it's quite interesting. It has been up to a person, or it is always up to a person, to volunteer to sample, to give a DNA sample for identification purposes. In other words, it allows them to eliminate a suspect as in police investigations. Clearly, if a person refuses to willingly provide DNA sample, that means they have something to hide. The source of the police power to take DNA, ladies and gentlemen, samples from individuals in custody originates in Section 63A of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984. However, until the Criminal Justice and Police Act 2001, it was unlawful for the police to retain those samples where an individual was subsequently acquitted or the charges were discontinued. The 2001 Act allowed for police to retain DNA samples of persons charged with offenses even after their acquittal. However, such samples could only be used subsequently by the police for purposes related to the prevention or detection of the crime, the investigation of an offense, or the conduct of prosecution. Under the Criminal Act, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to pay attention to this. Under the Criminal Act in 2003, the police now have the power to take and retain a DNA sample of any person arrested for any recordable offense, regardless of whether they are even charged, if charged, and subsequently acquitted. This has led to the establishment of the development of the National DNA Database, also known as the National Criminal Intelligence Database, which now has samples of some 3.5 million people, including over 500,000 samples from children under the age of 16. There are also concerns that persons from ethnic minorities are disproportionately represented in the numbers of DNA samples that are held. Given the extensive powers that the police have to take and retain DNA samples from suspects and former suspects, the database has become the largest forensic DNA database in the world. Now, Jovan, let's talk human rights. Because each DNA sample contains massive amounts of personal information about an individual, the retention of DNA sample raises major implications for the protection of individual privacy, particularly the confidentiality of medical information, which traditionally forms of biometric identification, such as fingerprints, retention does not raise significant privacy concerns because basically they're just used for identification. However, by contrast, retaining a sample of a person's DNA means that the holder of the sample could use it to uncover a very broad range of potentially intimate medical and genetic information about the person. The police, however, maintain that the access and the use of DNA samples stored for the purpose of the database is strictly regulated and attended by stringent safeguards. But again, this is a big deal, and I understand where the persons at the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, as well as the police commissioner, they're facing a lot of difficulties. But all I want to know is who's policing the police.
While I do understand your concerns, and even before I comment on that, Ron, if you were not reporting, what would you be doing?
That's a good question.
You need to be an investigator or a damn lawyer, okay? But on a serious note, I do agree with some of your concerns. They are very valid. But I think reform needs to come in the way we're dealing with cases. Up to recently, we see 33 unsolved cases making the headlines in the BVN. And for a small society, home to about 33,000 people, I think that is deafening. We can also look at a great reference, the series that made Netflix blow up recently,
Really
When
good
They
example.
See Us.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show the importance of having DNA in a database. Not only are we able to convict the felons, but we are also essentially able to free those persons who are innocent. So I think it's a step in the right direction for our local police force. I think as with anything else, anything serious, legislation is first required, and then we put the necessary mechanisms in place. Moving right along, In his contributions during the House of Assembly's debate on the Consumer Protection Act 2019, the leader of the opposition, Honorable Marlon Penn, made clear his dissatisfaction with Riteway having monopoly in their line of business. In light of consumer and business protection, he said we also have to ensure that this bill makes provision for small businesses to be protected from what he terms to be the Walmart effect. Take a look.
This phenomenon is now called the Walmart effect. The Walmart effect. When Walmart comes into small communities, what it does to a lot of the small businesses, the mom and pop shops, those type of facilities, it pretty much wipes out their small business community within that area, with a store like a Walmart or a Target or those type of stores enter into the marketplace. We have a similar situation here in the BVI. And it has to do with Northwest and the parent company of Riteway, BVI, the wholesale company. When that license was issued, it was issued with some specific conditions in terms of their operations and how they should operate within the environment. We have a situation right now where this is becoming similar to the Walmart effect in the BVI. You have a company, Mr. Speaker, with a capitalization of over $2 billion. This is a publicly traded company, competing in an environment with several small businesses. They're the wholesaler and they're the retailer. So they're selling you the product and they're still competing with you when you're trying to sell your product in the environment.
So, Ron, we see heavy remarks from Honorable Penn.
Yes.
I just want you guys to know that we did make an effort to reach out to the team at Rotown Wholesale to get a response, but up until press time, no response was provided. I heard that the director may be off island. However, Ron, what the Honorable Minister is referring to here is something we call channel conflict, which essentially mirrors the Walmart effect. And it's referring to a crucial factor in determining the speed of business in any economy. And while, yes, this may work out for the consumer, because what we see happening is that consumers benefit because of the competitive pricing. However, it leaves little to no competitive space for small businesses. So like the minister said, essentially what is happening is that you as a wholesaler, you're selling the products to small businesses, the retailers, and selling those very products to consumers. Now,
well, Jovan, not to cut you off there, but I find it very interesting. The leader of the opposition, the Honorable Marlon Penn, was actually the former Junior Minister of Trade and Consumer Protection. So I'm interested just to hear his comments now, coming out of having held that post.
Well, you know the you know the business of politics.
I know
Everything is
it very well.
conveniently done, but that's another conversation. But you know, he made reference, for example, in bigger economies like the United States of America, we see businesses, mega businesses like Time Warner, having to eventually split because of the same monopoly effect. The Honorable Minister also went on to say that Riteway is essentially in breach of the guidelines agreed to, which stated that they're not supposed to be selling certain goods and services, but nevertheless, they continue to do so. And quite shockingly, they have a purchasing power of $2 billion, which is fundamentally consolidated purchasing. So how then does our small businesses stand a chance?
Well, you know, this brought me back to a case where the late Honorable Dolores Christopher, 5th District Representative, former 5th District Representative, she had a hell of a task, because at one point in our territory, persons were adamant that we should allow stuff like KFC and McDonald's and all those different franchises. And she was so adamant that you can't do that, because here it is, you're giving persons an option, but you're also putting at risk our small businesses, cattles and
Pan cheese.
Nito, all those guys. So it's mirroring a very similar argument to me, but it's a very, very valid point.
And it forces those small businesses out of the economy. A lot of businesses in the BVI are family owned.
Correct.
So it's very important, again, that when going to this bill, we take a holistic approach. Not only benefits for consumers, but inclusion for business and protection and provisions for businesses as well. But what I love about this type of situation, especially bills and legislation being debated in the House of Assembly, is, while the sitting government is in power and the one forming and dealing with the legislation, members of the opposition might have a huge contribution, and that's what I love coming out of
They're in opposition. That's what they're there
for. Healthy debates in the House of Assembly, and that's what we need, healthy conversations that will work out for the people of the territory.
Indeed. Still ahead, road accidents on the rise in the BVI, and Boris is the new UK Prime Minister. Stay tuned. You're watching 284 News.
So you're saying I can ask this cat any question?
The cat is connected to the computer. You just type in the question, it will read his mind. There the answer comes.
You're the man! I've been looking for this for weeks.
Brilliant Hands and Minds tutoring services, one-on-one tutorials in math and English, intense homework assistance, academic enrichment, school projects, effective communication and public speaking development, sign language for adults and children on Saturdays only. Registered with the Virgin Islands High School Certificate Program, Brilliant Hands and Minds can help you too. Offering intense curriculum-based training to help you or your loved ones get their high school diploma. It's time to make your family's education a #1 priority. Hurry, space is limited. Brilliant Hands and Minds Learning Center. We are the trained education professionals.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching 284 News. Last Tuesday, a Virgin Gorda resident was ordered to pay $80,000 in compensation and, of course, to serve a 45-day jail sentence for his reckless driving that resulted in another man losing his leg. Now, Ron, this gruesome tragedy really shed some light on a growing dilemma we see here in the British Virgin Islands, where we see a rise in the number of road accidents, which essentially makes us question if we are truly doing enough to curb the issue. Now, on July 22nd, we had a motorcyclist colliding with an SUV. Street. Now, for a small society, and these are some numbers I was able to retrieve from the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, the numbers are staggering. In 2018, we had 913 accidents, 2 of which resulted in fatalities. And Ron, that implies, when you look at the population, that implies that 3%, essentially 3% of our population were in accidents. And so far for 2019, even though we're only in July, we have recorded a massive 513 accidents.
That's ridiculous.
In the BVI. That's crazy to me. So it seems like we are in a hurry to somehow get nowhere.
Yeah.
Isn't
Well,
that
we
crazy?
have nowhere to go. It's 25 square miles. So, I mean, you're going to get there eventually.
But we surely know that, improvement is needed. I think one of the things we have to pay attention to is our motorcyclists. I think, and I hate to have to say this because just recently we see the bikers community making strides to ensure
and we
that
too were a part of that, trying to educate
the users and make sure that they pay attention to the road rules. But some of them are clearly not paying heed to the road rules. A lot of them are riding around callously without even wearing a helmet. It just seems like in this day and age, if I'm to wear a helmet, I'm somehow considered to be uncool.
Yeah, it's not fashionable. Yeah.
But are we really thinking about the repercussions?
But at the end of the day, too, what I realized, too, is that a lot of drivers, they're not cognizant. They're not aware of the scooter riders, like blind spots and stuff like that. It's almost as though you have to look out for them and yourself. So I think, again, education and the conversation, because those statistics are alarming. Yes, we're a small territory, but the number of road accidents, that's just not cool.
And it's unwarranted. And we remember clearly, too, earlier this year that the current government propose putting in place legislation that will make way for even bigger bikes. And I'm really starting to question if we're truly ready for this.
Yeah.
What do you think?
If you can't handle a small bikes, how are you going to handle big bikes? That's a simple question.
Well, we reached out to the Commissioner of Police regarding the same question. Are we ready for legislation? And he had this to say, and I quote, "Before we introduce bigger bikes, a comprehensive education program should be implemented around safety. There should be a robust examination test for any license granted, and the condition of our roads require urgent attention to further ensure safety." End of quote. I really love that he made a point about our roads. Ron, I do believe that we need a national dialogue for better road infrastructure in the BVI. The roads, they need to be fixed, and not a temporary on the surface fix or pre-election fix. We really need the roads to be dealt with in the right way. In the BVI, we're talking about, diversifying our economies. We're talking about trying to encourage international investments, and even with the tourism industry, if we are to tap into new markets where people actually want a buck for their dollar, value for their dollar, these are foundational things that you need in place: proper infrastructure, telecommunications up to par, and we know the entire works. And even for the persons and the residents who live right here in the BVI, they deserve it, because no matter how you twist it and turn it,
I think that's the most important thing.
A lot of times, persons hit a pothole, they have a blowout. You have to stand the expense. So this is a conversation, like the Commissioner of Police said, it requires a holistic national approach, and we need to start talking. I also believe more policemen on the roadways will deter persons from violating the road rules. I think I have your presence. What do you think?
I think more police, but more trained police, and more police that are not timid. I saw a video this week, and I'm not beating them up at all, but I saw a video this week where there was an altercation, and you have 3 officers, 3 of them. They're standing there, and you might as well have went there. They were serving of no purpose, no value, not even to say, listen, okay, let's diffuse the situation. This party comes on this side, this party comes on this side. The persons involved were telling members of the Royal Virgin Islands
But why do
Police
you think that is so? Because I personally, my brother is in the force.
I understand.
And they go through 6 months of rigorous training.
6 months of rigorous training, but they're simply not, for whatever reason, maybe they don't feel like they have the support, or maybe some of them feel as though it's not their place, but whatever it is, it needs to be fixed. You can't be in law enforcement and be timid. You can't come to a crime scene or the scene of an incident and have the people there telling you what to do. So,
I totally agree with that. Of course, again, there's something I think we underestimate, and that is the cliche saying, do not drive while drinking. Please get a designated driver, and if you
especially
do not,
as we come around festival, ladies and gentlemen.
Especially now, if you do not have a driver, just kindly know your limits. And there's also the issue of recklessness. But I think, quite frankly, we really need to be more responsible on the roadways. In a lot of countries, persons are losing their lives, especially young children. So we don't want to get to a point where it's essentially out of control. We have to be mindful of how we're using the road, and also be mindful of the other road users.
Of course, I agree. Former London Mayor and empathic Brexit cheerleader Boris Johnson, affectionately known as Bojo, is the next UK Prime Minister, believe it or not, replacing Theresa May after several failed attempts to finalize her Brexit deal. People either love Bojo or hate him, and he knows it, and he doesn't care. He's a character, but his supporters believe that he will rally people with his wit and buffoonery, that he will somehow find a solution to Brexit. Johnson, born in New York, was the son of a British diplomat. After college, he became a journalist and was fired for making up quotes. But I guess his charismatic spirit has seemingly allowed him to make a comeback, eventually becoming the mayor of London and now its newest prime minister. He once said that Donald Trump is unfit to hold the office of president, but the two have long since become good friends, believe it or not. Boris, in a recent statement, said the relationship with the UK and the United States will be sensational. Now, many have said that the US President, Donald Trump, appears to be Boris's twin brother, separated at birth. Now, things don't always look the way we want them to, and in this case, I think it's shaping up to be quite the spectacle.
I love free speech. I know he's definitely a funny guy, but more profoundly, he promises to deliver on Brexit, and we know Brexit is a global phenomenon that sees the UK trying to exit the European Union. So let's see what becomes of it. But to be honest, Ron, with President Trump, With Trump as president of the USA and Boris as prime minister of the UK. Oh my God.
What are we doing?
You just don't know what else to expect.
Yeah.
Moving right along. Historic Puerto Rican protest sparks resignation and so much more to come after this commercial break.
Is business slow, cash flow down, hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media at cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works.
When you need to stay connected with friends and families at home or abroad, the best choice for you is Freedom. CCT Freedom. With the lowest rates in the market, our Freedom plan gives you unlimited calls and texting. Plus, our Freedom One package includes 10 gigabits of super fast unlimited LTE data and unlimited calls to the BVI, USA, USVI, Canada, Puerto Rico, and UK lines. Why pay for overages when you can enjoy CCT Freedom? Stop by at one of our stores today and speak with one of our representatives to find out more about our CCT Freedom packages. Welcome back, viewers. You're watching 284 News. We are bringing you an update on an international story that has been rocking the airwaves since New York prosecutors found a way to reopen the sex trafficking case against Jeffrey Epstein, a U.S. millionaire who now resides in St. Thomas. It is now alleged that he was found injured and in a fetal position in his cell at a New York City jail. Now, he was seemingly in a semi-conscious state with marks on his neck. But before we even get into this new update, let's take a look at who Jeffrey really is.
A registered sex offender who made a fortune as a hedge fund manager in the 1980s and 90s, known for his lavish lifestyle and high-profile connections. Jeffrey Epstein is facing new allegations that he exploited dozens of young girls for sex.
Victims were given cash payments if they could bring other underage girls to be similarly abused. And that's how he continued to expand the number of new victims that he had.
It's the latest in a decades-old saga that's been held up as an example of how powerful, rich men avoid accountability. So, who is Jeffrey Epstein? The 66-year-old was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. In his early 20s, he taught physics and math at the Daunting School, an elite Manhattan prep school. Connections he made there got him a job at the investment bank firm Bear Stearns. He then went on to open his own finance firm in 1982. And that's where he amassed his fortune. His firm reportedly only accepted clients worth $1 billion or more. Epstein tried to lead a private life, but his work managing the money of the very wealthy got him into some very high-profile social circles. He became friendly with former President Bill Clinton and current President Donald Trump, also Britain's Prince Andrew. Epstein has 6 residences, including an entire private island in the Caribbean and this $56 million mansion. The 7-story house is one of the largest private residences in Manhattan. These recent charges include allegations he sexually abused underage girls from 2002 to 2005 inside his Manhattan and Palm Beach homes. When he faced similar allegations a decade ago, federal prosecutors in Florida struck a secret plea deal with Epstein. He avoided a possible life sentence in prison and spent 13 months in Palm Beach jail, where he was allowed to leave for work 6 days a week. That 2008 plea deal was negotiated in part by Trump's current labor secretary, Alexander Acosta, who was then the top federal prosecutor in Miami. Now, prosecutors and investigators are seeking to hold Epstein without bail and have appealed for other victims to come forward.
Your bravery might just empower others to speak out about crimes committed against them. It's important to remember there never was, nor will there be, an excuse for this kind of behavior.
Epstein could face up to 45 years in prison.
So Ron, you see, this I think is one of three things. He probably attempted to take his life. Maybe it's a suicide attempt. I think it may have been staged suicide because we know for sure that he did not want to be at this specific jail. He was afraid. And it could also be that he could have been attacked by one of the inmates. None of those allegations have been dismissed so far. But I just wanted to remind you guys that he was remanded to jail. And even after, he tried to post bail. He even proposed a $100 million bail, which the magistrate essentially refused. He was remanded to jail. So federal prosecutors in New York allege that at least through 2002 to 2005, Epstein paid girls as young as 14 years old hundreds of dollars in cash for sex at either his Manhattan townhouse or his estate in Palm Beach, Florida. Prosecutors said that the acts began as massages, as we all know, but of course they eventually turned sexual, and that he would pay his victims to recruit additional girls. I just think it's sickening what we do when we get to a certain level of wealth.
Yeah.
I don't know, we get bored.
Clearly. Demonstrations turned to celebrations on Wednesday evening as Puerto Rico's embattled Governor Ricardo Rosello announced that he is stepping down after 12 days of historic and at times violent protest. He will leave office next Friday, August 2nd. Rosello announced his resignation late Wednesday amid a widening corruption scandal in his government. The protest was set off by a leaked derogatory group chat that alleged proved corruption inside his administration, noting profane, homophobic, and sexist comments, and of course the arrest of 2 former aides to the governor on fraud charges ranging over $15 million in federal funding. Ricardo Rosello basically became the poster boy, Jovan, for corruption in his administration, but he also represented decades of mismanagement that protesters have been targeting. Jovan, this is how it all went down. Thousands of protesters were gathered outside his mansion when they got the news. No one knew that the video was coming. The video starts playing and literally everyone went silent. Take a look. Jovan, what I absolutely love about this story is that 25 years from now, people will be talking about the night that millennials stood on barricades and said this, he has to go. That's simply what they did. And they stood up for their rights, they protested. That wasn't just euphoric and energetic to watch, but I think it was historic and just simply powerful.
Puerto Rico was not having it. And you know, the one thing I love most about living in this era is how we are holding our leaders and our legislators accountable to good governance, and I think it's so important. I think the world has changed. We live in different times.
Definitely changing,
and
evolving.
While we may not agree with all of those changes, I think when you are a leader in a leadership position, you stand to not represent part of the population, you stand to represent all of us. So I do applaud Puerto Rico for...
Job well done, guys.
Yes, he has to go. He has to go.
And this week, the Royal Virgin Islands Police arrest blotter goes as follows. An unidentified 15-year-old male arrested and charged for unlawful sexual intercourse with a girl under the age of 13. He was granted bail in the amount of $15,000.
Bordian Samuel, 27 of North Sound, Virgin Gorda, was arrested and charged for destroying property and common assault. He was granted bail in the amount of $5,000.
Amos Hodge, 59 of Long Trench, arrested and charged for driving without a driver's license and driving an unlicensed and uninsured vehicle. He was granted bail in the amount of $1,500.
Viewers, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. That's it for today's news roundup. Be sure to like us on Facebook at 284 Media and 284 BVI on Instagram, as well as Twitter. I'm Javon Wilson.
And I'm Ron Grant. Be sure to join us every Tuesday and Friday at 3 p.m. as we deliver honest and impartial news right here on 284 News. Don't forget, the Primetime Festival opens tonight. It's Festival Friday, everybody. Have a great weekend. Happy Friday.
Take care. Turn up.
Oh, may I assist you? You want top of power?
You want top of power?
Join the prepaid party with CCT and enjoy more affordable data plans, more top-up promotions, more savings with hero bundles, and more value for your money each and every Tuesday with Top Up Turn Up Tuesday. Visit a CCT store today or anywhere CCT Top Up is sold and top up your phone.
5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. You want top of power? Hello?
Wait, you had a lunch and care? You say you were sick? What happened to over the rehearsal?
No, babe. I'm actually watching the news right now. Take a listen.
Topping our newscast today, UFOs seen around Tortola Pier Park.
And district-free residents outraged over no water supply. They simply cannot bathe. These and more stories when 284 News returns.
All right, babe, just get some rest, take 2 Advil, and I'll see you later. Bye.
Okay, honey. I'll see you later. I love you.
It's clear to see that Coconut Lounge is a place to be, the coolest cocktail lounge in the British Virgin Islands. A lounge like no other, with welcoming, professional service, and a breathtaking ambiance. Not forgetting a diverse selection of wines, beers, and signature cocktails. Cozy, comfortable, contemporary. Coconut Lounge at Tortola Pier Park. Visit us today.